All right, we've got your Winnipeg Jets game preview here as the Utah Hockey Club rolls on its 4-game road trip. Plus, Doan is down and he's scoring in Tucson. And by the way, the Olympics are coming to Salt Lake. Will there be 3-on-3 hockey by the time we see them? All that and more coming your way in just a moment. Robyn and I are right back to start the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making us your first listen every single day. We appreciate you being here. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño. This is the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. If you're thinking about checking out some of our other shows, I do highly encourage that. I know it's still early in the season. There's been a lot of player movement lately, and I would tell you to go check out the Fantasy Podcast because there's a lot of players floating around, especially in some deeper leagues. You might need some help right now. Check those guys out, and I'll tell you what, it's some great fantasy advice on there. Absolutely recommend checking that out. Or, I mean, you could sneak over and check out any of the teams we're going to play here soon if you want the other side of the game previews. The show's brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And Robyn, for us to get started, starting the road trip was an overtime point in Vegas. Now you go up against the toughest team in the Western Conference, my Winnipeg Jets.
Your Winnipeg Jets, yeah.
I'm claiming it. I'm the only one who is behind them.
You're in that Central Division preview, which is funny. But this is going to be an interesting game. I mean, it's the first time that these two teams are going to face each other, at least as Utah being Utah. Obviously, we've talked about it before. There is still that previous history there, but we don't talk about that right now.
It's kind of interesting, isn't it? The way, so back when I started calling games for Nashville, Atlanta was still a franchise. So I actually got to call games in Atlanta, Thrashers versus Predators. And I loved it. I loved the games at Phillips Arena. I don't know what it's called now, but back then it was Phillips Arena. And now that franchise ends up going to Winnipeg. And of course, the original Winnipeg franchise, which flew the coop 10 years before that, ended up in Arizona. And now, of course, the way the franchise transfer works, this is not the continuation of the Winnipeg, Arizona franchise. This is a brand new franchise, but there are definitely some legacy elements in that the entire team was transferred to the new Utah ownership. So there's a lot of odd, energetic links here at play.
It really is interesting, and people are going to try to create links anyways. I know all the quotes. I think the term that everyone's using is deactivated Coyotes fans are still trying to create links between Jets 2.0 and Utah, which is what was once if you way back what Jets 1.0, even though, as you mentioned, there is no history there anymore.
Right. And that's, interestingly enough, so that Atlanta Thrashers record book carries on in today's Winnipeg Jets. And again, there is no first Winnipeg Jets into Arizona Coyotes team in existence right now. My question, Robyn, is this. If down the road, and boy, this is a rabbit hole, I'm just going to throw it out there. We can talk about it on a future episode. But if that franchise is then purchased from the NHL, does it become a purchased franchise that someone can secure the rights to and therefore doesn't need an expansion fee? Or, because expansion fees are hefty as opposed to sales prices, does that franchise book just die someday and they dole out an expansion franchise because it's a much bigger check that has to be written? Probably next time we're going to be coming up on $2 to $3 billion for an NHL expansion team, which is sick. The franchise values, side note, I was reading about franchise values today. Franchise values have climbed a ridiculous amount, on average 37% year over year in the National Hockey League. Just crazy. And guess what they're just starting to do? CBA talks. So let's see how that goes.
Interesting. I do like that. I do like that idea, and I do want to go really in depth about that. But the only one small thing I will say about that, and as someone that still does live in Arizona, I do think that everyone, including a lot of the richer people who would be behind orchestrating something like that, they want that the Coyotes 1.0 history back.
Yes.
Because if you go to, like, I think a couple months ago, if you went to Ice 10 in Scottsdale, they had the Shane Doan banner up that was returned to them by my ex co-host of this show, Matthew Jacobson. He gave it back to Shane Doan in the last game. So they want that back. So, but we'll dive deep. We can dive deeper into that as a potential idea, maybe somewhere down the road. Let's talk about this game.
Yes, this game is, as I mentioned, the best team right now in the Western Conference is arguably Winnipeg. And I say arguably because Minnesota's playing well. Dallas is playing well. Their numbers outside of the one-loss column are pretty close to Winnipeg's. However, the Peg, 11-1 in 12 games. That's pretty solid. And the only team that beat them in there, the Toronto Maple Leafs, almost didn't. They came back on them with an absolute vengeance and almost still found a way to win that game. So Winnipeg has been having a heck of a year. They are a goal-scoring machine. They have the most goals, 59 goals for. That is tops in the entire league. 30 goals against is not quite the best, but it's close. Their goal differential plus 29 is the best. They're 5-1 at home, 6-0 on the road. They're just doing it all right now. And they find ways to win. They've won all 11 in either regulation or overtime. So 8 regulation, and every time they've gone OT, they've won. So there's 3 overtime wins tucked in there. It's a very confident group. They're not giving up a lot. They score in bunches. They're deep. They're confident right now. They are flying around out there, Robyn. This is the tallest order I think that Utah Hockey Club has faced yet.
Certainly, and let's not forget, we're talking about a team that now going up against a team that has a Connor Hellebuyck that looks like he has not aged.
He actually looks like he's gotten younger.
Yes,
he's found the fountain of goaltending youth. Good for him. Good for him. Which is also good for Team USA. I mean, you got to root for that guy because of Four Nations. He is. I cannot see anyone else being the number one for Team USA at Four Nations.
Yeah, you're right, and I think that's going to be, based off the way he's been playing this season alone, right? Take anything in the past, but this season alone, he's been fantastic, and I think that's kind of another reason why it's a tall order. When you tack on all the things we've mentioned in the past of the issues and the hurdles, actually not only say issues, but the hurdles that the Utah Hockey Club has faced and still has to face as they go through October and going into November.
Yeah, it was interesting listening to Alex Kerfoot talk after the Vegas game, and even Ian Cole talking after the Vegas game the other night. They knew very well that they were fortunate to get a point out of Vegas on the road. Mm-hmm. The way that game went, they could have easily been just really knocked out of it. And they also knew that it wasn't as if Utah Hockey Club was outplaying Vegas, out shooting Vegas, out chancing Vegas. They weren't. That was a Connor Ingram show.
Yeah.
But Utah converted on the couple of really good opportunities they had. They got some bounces, some breaks. They took advantage. Good for them. That's what you're supposed to do. But they also know that they weren't the better team in that game. So, and they still had a chance to get 2 points out of it. Overtime's a coin flip, right?
Right.
So they don't get that win, but they also know coming out of it, okay, number one, we can generate and hang in there even when we're not playing our best game. We are going to need our best game against Winnipeg. And Robyn, the way they've been playing lately, they need to kind of start bringing that back up. The effort is mostly there. The concentration is mostly there. The execution is here and there. you know what? I think that was really your keyword last show was consistency. And I think that that's what they just really need to harp on at this point.
You're right. Absolutely. The consistency is going to be a focus point, I think, going into this game. And I think more specifically too, and it's something that you and I have discussed in previous games, mainly kind of as a consequence of the Utah versus Sharks game, and is playing a full 60-minute game and being able to play consistent through the entire period, the entire length of a hockey game in this situation. Because if they don't, we've seen what can happen.
Yeah, and that's it. Play all 60 minutes and, finish it off. When you play to the whistle, you play to the buzzer, whatever it is, you have to finish it off. And yeah, they did learn that lesson. And against Winnipeg, there will be no taking your foot off the gas. If you do, you're in trouble.
Yeah, Winnipeg can easily run away with this game if they don't. But what we're going to do, Tom, is we're going to get a little bit more into this conversation, kind of maybe get to some predictions. I know we want to talk a little bit about Josh Doan down in Tucson. We're going to get to some Olympic 3-on-3 talk. There might be something really interesting about that. We'll get to that right after this.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And part of today's show is also brought to you in part by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, Tom. So let's get into a little bit more of this preview, though, because I want to get some of your more thoughts on both sides, on players we should be watching out for in this game. And we already talked about Connor Hellebuyck on the Jets side, but a little more in depth on maybe some things to really keep an eye out for in this game, because we mentioned it's going to be a challenge. So who has to step up for Utah and who to watch for against Winnipeg?
Well, what I would love to see, Robyn, is a goaltending battle. I would absolutely love to see teams, throwing everything but the kitchen sink at each other, and both goaltenders playing well. I think Connor Ingram, like I said, I thought he was a great start against Vegas, and he was the reason why they come out with even a point. So I really thought that was great. Excuse me. I also really, for me, I know we've been talking about the defense for Utah,
Mhm.
and I don't want to. I don't want to keep bringing this point up. However, I'm gonna take a different spin. Is where I'm going with this. I think that Utah's defense, what they've been doing a better job of, is getting pucks through. And it's interesting. Again, listening to Ian Cole talk after the game the other night, he's 1 point away from 200 in his NHL career, and he's actually kind of started to heat up a little bit points wise. Now that is not his game. And he even kind of made a joke about it. He said, "Yeah, I know. I've been told a lot that, I'm 1 point away." He said, "But that could come 2 months from now." He's like, "So I'm not too worried about it." But what he's been doing as a microcosm of what they as a unit need to do is he's been getting those pucks through to the net. He's not making crazy cross ice tape to tape passes. He's not throwing some sick, wicked backhand sauce. He's just filtering the puck at the net, generating a rebound or getting it through or even getting a tip or, it can hit anything and everything on the way to the net. And as long as it goes in without a kicking motion, that's what you want. And
Yeah.
I think that that is what he has done, and the defense has done a good job of lately. And they really need to do more of that with Connor Hellebuck because he will stop everything he sees. So if the forwards aren't in front of the net, creating traffic and taking away the eyes of the goaltender, then it's going to be a long night for Utah shooters. And they really, really need to win those battles in front.
They really do, and I think that's that's one of the really important things about a blue line. A really important blue line is being, as you mentioned, getting able to get those pucks from the blue line, filter them, create rebound opportunities down at the net if they got the shot on, of course, and being able to do that. And as you mentioned, for those wingers, and those forwards, getting getting those lanes. Blocking the vision as much as you can. Because like you said, Hellebuck will cover. He will stop those.
Yeah.
He will stop it if he can. If he can see it for a second, he's gonna stop it.
Yeah. He really will. And he just he's just so good. He's so big, takes away a lot of the net. So even on screens, you have a very hard time beating him low. You've got to get pucks off the ice, but make them tippable for your teammates, redirects, deflections, or maybe, you do slide one through, but he's so hard to beat low. He's big. He takes up so much net, especially when he's in the butterfly, but he stays up, keeps his arms active. Just really, really good goaltender.
It really is, and I think that's kind of like to the point you were making, why it's going to be really important to see those kind of plays and seeing what Utah can do to get the pucks to the net. So maybe get an eye a little bit. You mentioned Ian Cole, but the ones that are more off, a little bit more offensively focused, get someone like Sergachev and Lamoureux and see what they're able to do.
Yeah, and Sergachev's done a nice job of changing his shooting angle. You'll notice him make little shifts. A guy who's a master at that is Cale Makar. Will pivot just enough to open something up 3 feet to his left, 3 feet to his right, change the shooting angle, get a seam, and get a puck through. Sergachev is that kind of smart heads-up player. He can do that too. He can generate in those ways. He's good with his edges, so he's able to get them through as well. So that's absolutely something I think is going to be key.
All right. I want to get a rapid fire 3 keys from you.
Number one is shut down Kyle Connor. 19 points in 12 games to start the year. 4 power play goals, leads the Jets. By far the most shots on the team with 45. You got to start with Kyle Connor. So I put 4 guys on Kyle Connor and staple them to the boards. So that's key number one. I really do think net front traffic is going to be absolutely huge. And that is going to be really, really important. The other thing is back in their own zone. Ingram makes some first saves and he's forced to make some second saves. They've got to help their goaltender out. They really do. They have to make those second and third opportunities disappear because the Jets can beat you in so many ways. They can score off the rush, score off the cycle. They can score the dirty goals, the ugly goals. They can score the pretty ones too. And Ingram has to make the first save. But once he does, defensively, and this is a 5-man unit job. They have to be defensively responsible, help the goaltender out, tie up, clear pucks. You don't want second and third chances against this team.
100%. We're gonna finish up this preview, Tom. We're gonna get to a little bit of a quick prediction. We still got to get to some Josh Doan, Tucson Roadrunners talk. We still got to get this Olympic talk. We'll get to that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is, well, honestly, guys, it's a new way for it's my preferred way for daily fantasy sports these days. The best place to get real money action. With over 10 million members, billions of dollars, and award winnings, Prize Picks has made the daily fantasy sports accessible to everybody. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money for as little as 4 correct picks. And again, all you got to do is pick whoever you want. Whether you want to go, let's say, Justin Jefferson and more or less than a certain amount of yards. Let's even go some NHL talk. If you're going to do Connor Hellebuck, is he going to get more or less than 27 saves, or is Maverick Lamerlou going to get more than 21 minutes on the ice? You can do all of that all on one app. It is really, like I said, it's one of my favorite places to do daily fantasy sports. I got a chance to use it for the last couple of weeks, and I've really enjoyed it. Got a couple of lineup wins, made me feel really good on it, and I have nothing better to say about it. So I want you guys to try it out yourself. Download the app, use the code LOCKEDONNHL. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even have to win. To get that $50, the moment you place your first $5 lineup, that $50 instantly becomes available. You can use it to all those things like I just mentioned for those lineups to get, once again, that 100 times your money, possibly, to see what we can do with that. Once again, that's Locked On NHL. If you download the app on Prize Picks, that's Prize Picks. Run your game. So,
Robyn, you know who your best fantasy goaltending option is right now? Freddie Anderson in Carolina. In his 4 starts, been absolutely crazy dominant. Great numbers. You heard it here first. Just send Tom a coffee. You can buy your way to my heart with a cup of coffee. But yeah, there you go. Freddie Anderson. Fantastic numbers right now.
I like it. So I really quick before I know you want to talk about Josh Doan and the Olympics, Tom. I want to get to those 2 predictions because see where we're at in this game, because the FanDuel odds, I don't have the graphic up available, but the Winnipeg Jets are favored in this one. Surprise.
Shocker.
Minus 210 on the money line, plus 172 in favor of the Utah Hockey Club. I mean against the Utah Hockey Club, which is interesting because it's actually lower odds or better odds than I expected. But I was going to think a little bit longer odds for this game for Utah. But your thoughts? Also, total points at 6.5.
The predictive, I think I might take the over. Even though Winnipeg does such a good job preventing goals, but they score a lot. I think Utah still does have a pretty good offense, so I'm probably going with the over. And that's why it's so hard with the predictive part of this. On the law of averages would tell you Winnipeg at 11-1 is probably bound to slow down at some point. But do they slow down against the Utah Hockey Club is the question, right?
Right.
So Utah did not play great against Vegas, but hung in there, got a point. So they're battling and they're opportunistic and they're finding ways to scrap and stay in games. And this is only the second game of the road trip. Mm-hmm. So plus they've had travel day and now some downtime to get acclimated, get their legs under them in Winnipeg. Maybe this is a Utah Hockey Club that can go in there and steal a game from the Winnipeg Jets. And I wouldn't mind that. Would it be surprising to me? Yes. I think Winnipeg probably wins this game. This is the one, if you'd asked me, Tom, pick one that for sure you think Utah Hockey Club doesn't come out on top, it would have been this one out of this road trip. But you never know. You never know. So if you're dying to put $5 somewhere, you know what I mean? Like, you're probably not getting your money back, but if you do, it's a nice little return.
Right. You mentioned the possibility of a goaltending matchup in this game, and to me, that's what I'm going to see. So I'm going an under. I'm going to the under.
Okay.
I'm taking the under on this one. I still do have Winnipeg winning this one, but if I'm going to give you a final score, Tom, I'm going to say this is a 2-1 low-scoring chess match between these two teams.
No. No. I think we're either talking 5-3 with one empty netter or 6-3 with two empty netters for Winnipeg.
Okay. I think this is the first time we've had very different opinions on how the game's gonna go.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
I think Winnipeg can just score goals like crazy. And it's so underrated. They're so good defensively. Everybody's looking at Connor Hellebuck, but holy cow, Ehlers is pouring them in. Connor, like up and down the lineup right now, they look so good.
I've got the trust that Connor Ingram can have those days in which he can turn on. He can turn it on, and when he turns it on, he is like a wall.
Well, and that's what you want to see, right? I mean, this is a playoff game for them right now. I'd love to see Connor Ingram come out and just stone them.
Absolutely. Let's move on from that. You got those predictions in. You got a couple things you want to talk about.
I do. So Donors down. But in 2 games, he got 2 goals in the American Hockey League. And right now, I think that for Josh Doan, he becomes one of the premier players down there. And honestly, didn't have a great start to the NHL season. And it became a numbers game. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And we talked about, like earlier on, they brought in Yamamoto, and then all of a sudden it's like, where do you fit this guy in? They even, they moved on from Yamamoto. They Doan goes back down because, and again, here's the thing about the numbers game, Robyn. I'm trying to make like 12 points at once. Let me focus. The reason why he's the guy that goes down is because he's young and he doesn't have to clear waivers.
Right.
So you're not risking losing anybody there. That eventually he's going to come back. It is, at the end of the day, maybe not this year, but probably next year, his job.
Yeah.
But does one more season in the American Hockey League of being a dominant force hurt him? No, certainly not in his early 20s. So I think
it's helped a lot of people. It's really, like, take a look at, I think the amount of time that Michael Carcone spent in the American Hockey League, became the league's leading scorer, and he came up and became quite a force. He gave Arizona and then now Utah a reason. It's like, hey, no, you're one of us. You stay up here.
And he's another guy who's had a slow start to the season too, and it happens. It happens to guys, and sometimes it happens in bunches, but sometimes they break out and explode. So I think the time down in the American Hockey League is good for him, and it's good to see he's already scored twice in 2 games. I just think that the move was a good one as far as the seasoning and the growth of the player. I know it's not a popular move with guys to get sent down, but this appears to be the right move at the right time. And as Utah Hockey Club progresses through the season, look, I'm sure we'll see him again. He'll be back up for another cup of coffee here and there, but let him find his confidence. I think he didn't necessarily have that.
Let him find his confidence and let Arizonans enjoy a Doan once again for a little bit while longer.
There you go.
All right, that's on that. But that last bit you wanted to mention, you have a few minutes left on here.
Real quick, let's knock this out. So I like to talk about Olympic stuff because of Salt Lake with the upcoming Olympics 2034. there was Helene Elliott, who's a great follow on Twitter, and she covers the Kings and the NHL, uh, with the news that they are looking at the potential for 3-on-3 hockey as a separate sport for the Winter Olympics. Probably not this time around, but 2030. Probably wouldn't be enough time to shoehorn it in for 2026, Robyn, but 2030, and then that means 2034, we would see 3-on-3. And I think that would be incredibly exciting. I mean, they did it with basketball, as you pointed out when we were talking about it. So what are your thoughts as a fan?
I like it. You know, I feel like the 3x3 basketball works so well in Paris, and you know, for example, or just in general as a sport in the Summer Olympics. I don't see why it won't work with hockey. I'm sure the rules will be very different because I'm sure we're still going to see a full sheet of ice because that's the only way. It's the only way I see it working. But in this situation, we're going to see a faster paced game, but you have so much more open room to just make so many plays. And the question I am having, and I'm assuming this is what we're going to see, Tom, and I want to get your thought about this, is if it's going to be 3-on-3, are they still going to have it on the international ice sheet, on the Olympic ice sheet where it's 200 by 100? Or are they going to maybe see if they can say, hey, let's put it on the North American sheet, shrink it by those 15 feet on that narrow, bring it a little bit closer in?
If you do that, every place you go around the world, you need 2 different sheets.
Fair.
But man, on the 100-foot wide ice surface,
That's
3-on-3, like
exactly.
You wouldn't see a guy for 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's what and I think that's the only thought process I'm having. It's the only concern I'm having, because if you have that much space on a 3-on-3, that's a lot of space.
Right. It is. It's an awful lot of space. You can always take the puck wider. And the tendency in a 3-on-3 when defending someone like that is to let them loop out up high, and then you switch, men in coverage or women in coverage so that you can maintain a little bit, I guess, less effort in the defensive zone, because you don't want to chase people around the net, chase them around the net, and they just keep looping and circling, and you tire yourself out, and then you are going to give up a goal. So yeah, that'd be really interesting. That's a great point. And I'd love to see what they're going to do with that.
The only other thing I can say, and it kind of contradicts what I said earlier, is maybe you do go a half sheet. 100 by 100 isn't the worst thing, but I'm not in the rules making business, obviously, but but having my thought process go through this, it makes me wonder what's going to be in their head. And I mean, it's a good thing they have. What is that at this point? So is that 6 years?
Yeah.
To figure it out.
Yeah. And maybe test things a little bit here and there with some scrimmages and see how it goes. There can be a lot of tweaking between now and then.
There certainly will be. I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see it though. To see once it actually does come to fruition, because it sounds like it'd be a really fun thing to watch.
And here's the cool thing about it is Salt Lake is primed to be the place where everybody's figured it out, right? The first time it happens, countries might be guessing a little bit. You're not really sure. You have to develop a style and a technique and a format that works for countries. So I think once you go through it once, and then you have 4 years to prepare, then in 2034, you're going to see everybody's best instead of everybody's best guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, and that's kind of the things you tend to see in general when it comes to any new Olympic sport. The very first year they do it at an Olympics, it's kind of wonky. And I'm like, I don't understand what's going on as a spectator. So I can only imagine what's going on, there in the actual playing field. But the next time it comes around, it's like, oh, I remember this. This is how it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be cool. So who knows? But if we do, we got a couple years to figure it out. But Robyn, I think it's worth mentioning on especially this podcast out of all of them, because, host city and all. I think that's a pretty cool thing.
It certainly will be. So I think if we have any updates, if anything we learn more, it probably might not be for a few years, but hey, we'll talk about it.
Yes, we absolutely will.
But anyway, that's going to be it for this episode, Tom, of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. If you all liked what you heard, once again, don't forget to leave us a review, give us a comment, a like, subscribe if you have yet to already. And
click the bell so it tells you when we have shows and episodes dropping.
Yep. If you are subscribing on YouTube, hit that notification bell. You'll get notified every single time, so you will not have to miss a thing. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We are on Instagram, Threads, X at LO_NHL Utah. I am personally at Robyn_Leaño. Tom Callahan is at Callahan on air. You guys can interact with us, ask us any question you might have. We might answer right back or on a future episode of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. We'll see you guys next time.